welcome to Tuesday training. We've got a great training today. I'm swallowing my tongue already. We've got a great training today on TMJ. Mary, it's so good to see you. Hey, honey, I'm so glad you're here. I've been thinking about you. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm happy
so happy I can actually make it.
Yes, me too. I know how busy you are, so we're all very busy, and I'm also glad that you made time. We got all kinds of people coming in. Sorry, guys. I feel like I need like 3 more hands because I'd really like to look at each one of you and have a conversation as you come in. And I got live buttons and waiting rooms and all kinds of things. So please know that my welcome is intended to be warm and calm and gracious and welcoming. And I'm so glad you guys are all here. Lori, Cheryl, Gary, Lisa, Mary's in the house. I know we got a couple people here not on camera, which is also okay. Let me make sure I say hello to you. Joshua, always great to have you. AP, happy that you're here. I wonder who AP is. I probably know your name. Kathy, nice to have you here as well. And Lisa, I said hello to you. Okay, great. I've said hello to everybody that's here. Welcome. We're talking TMJ today. It's like our last week of this month where we're talking specific diagnoses and what to do about it. Have you guys noticed the theme that every single one of the, have you noticed the theme in every single one of the diagnoses we've talked about this month for those of you who've been here? Maybe, maybe not. Yes, Lori's like, yes, I heard it. Okay, good. We're going to weave that theme again today. If you've not been here yet this month, that's okay. You'll still hear it. We're going to talk TMJ, what it is, what it isn't, how I navigate it, how I used to navigate it and not get great results. So let's learn from those mistakes, or not mistakes, let's call them delays. Nobody got hurt, so there wasn't a mistake. But none of us wants to make a delay. We all want to get to it, solve the problem, and move on, right? Isn't that what we're all here? Yes, right, Gary, Cheryl, yes, I get you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll share with you what didn't work and how I figured out what did work. And then we'll move on from there in our conversation with TMJ. As always, please feel free to ask questions. If you are not here on camera, you can unmute and ask a question and use your voice. You can also use the chat. I always prefer voice over chat just because, again, with the screen and the controls, but please do ask your questions. I will get to the chat. And if you have put something in the chat and I haven't answered it, just put it in there again, or if somebody here sees it and I haven't addressed it, call me out on it. The idea is that I'm not here to talk at you for the hour. I'm here to pour into you and serve you, which means you get to have your questions answered as well along the way. And if at this point you're like, who is this girl, fast talker? I am your host for the hour. I'm Gina Schatz. I am here every Tuesday at this time, training live to share with manual and movement practitioners how I work clinically to aid and remedy all kinds of aches and pains, like literally anything, we've got it. Andrew, hey Andrew, you'll join on camera if possible, but not at the moment. No problem. Thanks for letting us know, and I'm glad that you're here. Contribute however you can, and just make sure you get your questions answered. If I don't see you, that doesn't mean you're out of mind for me. I have been both a manual and movement practitioner for 31 years now and counting. Been going over my history, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I did that too. So I've got, some experience to share with you, and that's really what I'm here for, is to share with you how I got to the resolution that I've created with the clients that I work with, still work with them clinically, and you can be a manual and movement practitioner, in my opinion, and still create results. One's not more paramount than the other. So that's part of our community culture here, if you will, that we're all welcome, we're all equals in that way, because we can all create and affect a positive result. That said, this has been coming up in my level 2 mastery training. It doesn't mean that there's no need for the other, right? It doesn't mean that manual practitioners are obsolete because a movement practitioner can do it. It doesn't mean that all we need is movement and, well, I've said that already, manual is obsolete, or the other way around, that only manual practitioners can solve the problem, that then movement practitioners are just sort of puppets and teaching people where to put their leg. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's a place in the middle where we can all address functional movement and optimized alignment, which is needed wherever you are on your path as a practitioner. And it's needed for all bodies that you're serving. I was just recently in a conversation with someone who's like, well, you need to parse it down. You need to parse it down. Like, you can't possibly mean that every single body you can affect. my friends, but we can because we all have the same spine. We all have the same glenohumeral joint. So there is a place where we all meet in the middle, and there's a place where we're experts and niched out away from the others that are in our greater community. If you're a manual person, you're slightly over here doing slightly different things, and vice versa. But there's a commonality around the anatomy and the functional anatomy that we all get to know, because the end results is all delivered with very similar processes. So I hope that's more clear. I've been quizzed on this just in the last 48 hours, so I'm honing my messaging to make it super clear. I love both manual and movement practitioners. They're both needed. There's a place in the middle where we overlap, which doesn't make the opposite obsolete. That's the end game on that one. The takeaway of the takeaways, if you will. So as I share with you each Tuesday, it's on that middle line. It's that functional anatomy, how we're designed, how things go wrong, and what you need to look for so that you can do the thing that you do to remedy it. I'm not here to teach you better massage techniques or fancier yoga poses. That's not what I'm here to do. That's sort of the end results. I'm right in the middle line on that functional anatomy line. So if that's what lights you up, then you are in the right place. And I'm happy that you're back if you've been here 100 times. We've been here a couple of years doing it at this day and time. So thank you for those of you who are repeat customers, repeat guests, if you will, and contributors to this juicy conversation, which today is TMJ. How many of you here have met with TMJ, either in your own body or with a client that you're serving? Yeah, 100%. How many of you know what caused the TMJ? Fewer hands, less confident. That's right, exactly. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, how did they get there with this TMJ thing? Now, TMJ is not only a location on the body, but it's also a diagnosis, which is kind of cool how they interchange. You know, some words we can use in two different ways. It's not a word, it's an acronym. TMJ as a diagnosis is a disorder. So right away, if we recognize that it's a disorder, the next question I want you to automatically come to is disorder in what? Disorder of what? What preposition fits there? Disorder of? What is the actual disorder? Because if you know what the diagnosis is, you can reverse engineer how it got there. So anybody know what the disorder is? What the TMJ, which is an acronym for a disorder, what is the disorder that they're referencing? Anybody know? Gary?
Go ahead, Gary.
TMJ stands for temporal mandibular joint. This something TMJ D. Sometimes they put the D at the end to say it's a disorder, but it's basically the jaw joint is out of alignment for whatever reason, and it is grinding away and creating pain and dysfunction there. Could be headaches. It could be a lot of different effects of TMJ. So.
Yeah, TMJ can cause a lot of other, sort of satellite symptoms, if you will. Lori, were you going to add anything else? Thanks, Gary.
Nope, Gary, he nailed it. Like, it's a joint, right? And I'm like, oh, we can affect joints.
Right. Well, TMJ as a body part is a joint. The diagnosis is a diagnosis of a disorder. A disorder, what disorder in that joint is where I want you to get clarity. What disorder in that joint? Is it inflamed? Is it eroding? Is it, and Gary gave it to us. It's a misalignment.
Misalignment, right.
Right. If you know it's a misalignment and you know that it's a joint, and joints are what get misaligned, it's where two bones meet, then you can decide if that's in your wheelhouse. Right? Can you affect it? I can. Most of you can, I know, because I've worked with you. Muscles move bones. When bones are out of alignment, the muscles can't function fully. And then you need to figure out which is the chicken and which is the egg. Was the bone throttled out of alignment by like impact? Did someone get sucker punched? And that's what threw that joint out of alignment. And now the muscles can't contract fully and do their job, which sends all those satellite symptoms that you mentioned, Gary. Or is there some other musculoskeletal thing happening that's preventing that joint from staying in alignment when the muscles move to when the muscles contract to move those two bones relative to each other. If you have answers to those questions generally in the body, you can solve TMJ. If you're still looking to figure out how to have answers to those questions, awesome, you're in the perfect place. Let's get you a little more functional anatomy and voila, you'll find it. So either way, that's my point at the top of the hour. If you can get to those clarity points and then have skill with it, you'll solve it. But if you're not even clear what you're working on, then you're sort of, we've said this like every week, then you're sort of spinning around yourself for the hour that your client's with you, or even less, right? If you only have, Mary, I know your sessions are much shorter, other people have longer sessions. It doesn't matter. You could serve them in the time you have, or you could waste their time and yours. Problem with wasting their time is that then you feel less confident, and then your confidence starts to dim, and then you tend to actually waste more time the next time because you're more tentative going in. So we just want to be clear when we go in. Do I have what it takes to address this? It might even be the first time meeting this, whatever diagnosis it is. But if you can parse out what the diagnosis is and the body part that is affected by it, you either can work that body part or no, not yet, but you can. Okay, so then that takes us to, what is the body part? You guys have mentioned it, Lori and Gary, it's the temporal mandibular joint. Some of us are still unclear where that is. The good news is that you know it's a joint, so you know it's where two bones meet. It's actually where the jaw meets the skull. The temporal bone on the skull meets the mandible, the lower part of the jaw. And if we get Murph to play here, there it is. There's the joint right there. Where the mandible, see how it kind of like tucks up and under behind this, it's called the zygomatic process. It's not the zygomatic bone, that's a different bone, but it's the process of that bone. Sometimes we think that the TMJ is there. It's actually tucked under a little bit. You can see by Murph's display here, it goes up and under and connects to this bone here. Now that's really important if you are trying to figure out what caused whatever's happening for this person to have this diagnosis. What caused that? What do you think top of mind right now? I gave you one example. What could cause the juncture between the lower jaw, the mandible, and the skull to no longer be aligned? What could be a cause of that? What could someone's body have been through in their lifetime that would cause a juxtaposition of those two bones that are otherwise designed to be perfectly aligned?
Well, sometimes it's just improper chewing, because what a dentist would say is you have an overbite or an underbite or a crossbite. So from the dental perspective of how they're looking at it, how it's affecting the teeth, they will try to correct with braces or bite plates at night to deal with that pressure on the jaws. But again, they're working with symptom and not necessarily fixing the problem.
Exactly. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're going to get to the source, not the symptoms. And I love that you brought this up, Gary. TMJ tends to be in the realm of dentists, right? So once body workers reach TMJ, they're kind of like, whoa, what can I do that the dentist didn't do, right? I had those thoughts as well. And just like we talked about with podiatrists, by law, they can only work from the knee down. So they don't see the relationship in the lower extremity from innominate to foot. It's not how they're trained. Same thing with dentists. They can only work from the clavicle up. What I'm going to share with you today is how not near this joint TMJ actually starts. I'm going to get there with you guys. So yes, it can be from improper chewing. And then my question is, well, what caused that? Right? What caused these two bones? What caused mastication to be off? We're all designed optimally. So loss of teeth, I saw you add in AP. Yeah, loss of teeth. Okay, what caused the loss of teeth? Right? Because if you lost one tooth, you might lose another one. That is ultimately still the source. I don't want to pad this jaw and not get to what caused the loss of teeth, because I'm just going to keep padding all the teeth as they get lost, right? I'm still chasing symptoms, even if it's a dental issue. Most of the time, TMJ is not a dental issue. I promise you we'll get there today. So let's explore more. What else could cause a misalignment between the skull bone and the jawbone? What could cause what could cause a misalignment there?
Could be
Where-
trauma,
Yeah.
What kind of trauma? What
like
kind of trauma, Cheryl?
hit in the jaw or an accident or a car accident. Could be a number of things.
Dental
Well,
surgery.
dental surgery, hit in the jaw. What else?
Emotional trauma.
Okay. What
Mhm.
else? What other physical?
Misalignment of the cervical spine.
Yeah, we
that
can start
the spine?
we can start tracing it down the axial skeleton. Absolutely. AP says anatomical difference. Sure. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna invite you guys while we're here on Tuesdays. Absolutely, there can be anatomical differences. Absolutely, people come into this lifetime with all kinds of very interesting, sometimes complicated musculoskeletal issues. What I want us to focus on while we're here on Tuesday is to get to the part where that's not the problem. Because what that's doing is immediately handing over the baton to some other thing outside of us that we can't solve. And 99% of the time, that's not true. But we give it up too quickly. So yes, Andrew, absolutely. And for this conversation, what else could have realistically happened?
Whiplash or
Whiplash,
the forward head posture.
forward head posture could. Yep. There's one more thing I'm also thinking of that's super common that a lot of folks experience, and we don't really register it as a musculoskeletal complicator.
I was gonna say concussion, but I don't know if people have, like, if that's, that common? That's the common one? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Oh.
telling you, we passed the baton way too quick. Yeah. What actually is the physical experience in the body when someone when someone is diagnosed ultimately with a concussion? What did their body go through?
Like their brain, I'm trying to remember. It's like their brain moves in their head, like something.
So what does that mean to one of these two bones?
Well, because the skull got hit.
The
Yeah,
skull
yeah.
got hit
Thanks,
hard enough.
Mary. Yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
Skull got
Right?
hit.
Yeah, like you got knocked in the head. Got it.
You got knocked in the head. Your skull got knocked in the head hard enough that your brain did what it did, which led to a congruent diagnosis. But you got to think about, like, what was the impact to the skull? The skull's movable, guys. The skull's movable. These sutures in the top of the skull, they're zipped pretty tight, but they're designed for some movement for exactly the purposes we just talked about. You don't want your brain to swell inside your head and to not have any outlet. You don't want the impact of your skull to be fragile like the shell of an egg so that your brain takes all the impact. You want it to get up a little bit of give, which means there can be just enough movement in that temporal bone that it now no longer aligns with the jaw. But we could end up with jaw pain and go to the dentist and have all kinds of teeth removed and have all kinds of night braces and be on all kinds of medication and not be able to eat without pain and have it be a daily 3 times a day type of thing. Or we could solve it. Wouldn't that be so great? I'm into that one. Let's do that. Let's take one of those to go. I mean, I'm glad that you came in. Cynthia, nice to see you. Elizabeth, hello. I didn't say hi to all of you as we were hot on the path of discovery. Laura, nice to see you. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so now we're focused now in our lane. We're not dentists. I don't think anybody here is a dentist. We're all manual or movement practitioners. We work on the body. We're aware of the body part. We're aware of how it's meant to be by its design, again, without navigating pathology for this conversation. And we know that there's very real things that people experience in their body that could put those two bones just askew of each other enough that now, when those bones are askew, can the muscles contract fully? No, we talked about that in the lever system. They can't contract fully. Now we have a biting issue. Now we have a chewing and mastication problem. But it's not the chewing that's the problem if it was the concussion that knocked the relationship of these two bones out of alignment. You guys get it? Okay, that's the substantial significance of a proper intake. Getting all that information about what did this body experience before they showed up in your office, and what's the implication of what it experienced. Before we start, like, it's so funny. We refer out too quickly on some things and fail to refer out on other things. So we need to like tighten up that like referral pattern. Sometimes it's in our wheelhouse and we're like, we need to take a minute to be uncomfortable enough to dive into the anatomy and be like, what is this bone again? What could that have possibly been? How did this work out when the body experienced it? Like, you got to take your hot seat yourself. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not as uncomfortable as being complicit to someone's pain that doesn't get resolved in the dental chair. It's not dental related or dental caused. It's dental related, not dental caused. Okay. All right, cool. So we know that bones attach to each other through what? What connects two bones to each other?
Ligaments.
Oh, ligament.
Yay! Mirror neurons for the win. Yes, ligaments connect bone to bone. And so if these two bones are out of alignment, we know that there's a ligament in the midst somewhere too. Now, do we need to go blame the ligament? No, we're not blaming anything. We're going to look for what actually caused the problem. With hypermobile constitutions, it's more probable that their ligaments have less ability to hold those bones together, especially after impact trauma. Doesn't mean that they're doomed. It just means that you as the provider get to recognize that in the absence of ligament constitution that's robust, you definitely are navigating the muscles as well. I'm bringing this up right now because those are the folks that typically have a chewing problem. It's the muscles that are doing the chewing, of course, because muscles move bone. Muscles have to do the action of chewing, right? And when the ligaments don't have enough robustness to them and these bones are a little bit off, there can be a lot of movement in that joint in the absence of the constitution of the ligament. And then again, we're still blaming the muscles. We're still blaming the chewing. And I'm just appealing to you that that's still a symptom. It can be involved. And if it is, then I hope some of you are like, well, how do I strengthen muscles of the face? Great question. Figure it out, because that's what's needed after the bones are aligned. We know our formula, alignment, strength, function. That's the order of things. If you're still looking for that formula and what I actually mean by that, go watch the masterclass, the functional anatomy masterclass. I walk you through exactly how I figured out that was the order of things. Again, because I was wasting time. I was sort of like whack-a-moling my way through a treatment at times and realizing that I needed to do this first before that first. So that I know is the formula. I'm sharing it with you. I need to get these two bones aligned first, and then I may need to do something extra to the muscles, especially if I have a hypermobile constitution and I know that ligament is not hardy enough to do a full throttle recovery on its own. Okay, cool. No problem. I got that. It's true for everywhere in the body. Now we're back to how did that joint get out of alignment if there wasn't impact trauma? There's no concussion. There's no hitting your head on the windshield. There's no whiplash. No dental work. How can you create TMJ out of the ether? Gary?
This sounds like far-fetched, but I read some research that if you have a leg length difference, that sometimes a leg length can just in the body's compensation goes all the way up to the head and the jaw. And when you
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I read some research somewhere. I love that. Thank you. And I've mentioned leg length discrepancy, I don't know, half a dozen times. Most of the time, there's not an actual leg length discrepancy. So again, for the interest of conversation here while we're here on Tuesday, set aside pathology, right? We're not talking about legs that were in a body that experienced polio at one time and there's like legit bone length differences.
Mhm.
Let's just say there's actual equal length in the legs. Those folks can still, by the way, be diagnosed with leg length discrepancy. It's rarely in the leg. It's QL. It's a hip hiker. Okay, so what caused that? What caused that, Gary?
Could be a lot of different things, but I just noticed that in working with TMJ clients that their pelvis is out of tilt. I mean, it's definitely there. I can, you can palpate it and feel it. And sometimes the client's aware of that and the connection, and sometimes they're not.
Right, because it's up to us to put the connection together. But I'm glad that you have put the connection together. If a leg length discrepancy is 99.9% of the time QL related, and that equals a pelvic misalignment, and you're recognizing that there's a tie to that to TMJ as a disorder, what would be the connection?
Well, we're looking now at spinal compensation all the way up.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Yep. So I started our talk, well, somewhere at the start of our talk, I said, it's not even here. We're spending all this time figuring out what TMJ disorder is and the alignment of the bones and blah, 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 blah. It's not there most of the time. And I know this. This is where I'm going to share with you how to save time. I have worked the skull and the neck excessively. I've done myofascial release to the temporal mandibular joint where you're like, really, I look like people on my table have looked like Murph before, like, just pull their jaw over there and really make some changes, structural, manhandle them and try to get some changes in their jaw. I've done myofascial release to the cervical spine, thinking that it was the neck that was holding the head off kilter. I've even sent folks home with a trick that I was taught, put a cork between your teeth, right? And stretch the joint enough so that it's equal and you hold it in that position. And then the cork doesn't hurt your teeth because you'll just bite down into the cork and the whole bit. Well, if you've been with me for more than 5 minutes, you know that stretching doesn't even exist. So why I was doing that for the time that I was doing it is almost embarrassing to admit. That's why I can say with conviction to you guys, it doesn't solve the problem. The action in the body is contraction. The action is not stretch. If we're talking about a chewing issue, that's a muscle contraction issue. That's not a muscle stretch issue. So we're not going to solve it by stretching more. And if it's a ligament discrepancy like hypermobility, do I need to add more length between the two? No, it's like opposite of what I need. Right. So I'm telling you, don't do that. And I did for a while because just like you, I had folks with TMJ and the dentists were like adamant about the diagnosis. And I was like, okay, let me be in service to you and this patient and try to figure it out. And I spun around in the wrong position for a long time until I was like, you know what? Let me think for myself here. There's something else going on. And you named it, Gary. It's an axial skeleton issue. We talked about this several weeks back. What are the bones that make up the axial skeleton? Let's remind, call him out. I'm going to hold Murph on his side just so he makes the camera. What are the bones that make up the axial skeleton? Anybody? Calling all practitioners. Front stage, please. Front stage. Grab your mics. What are the bones that make up the axial skeleton? Ooh.
Might be the vertebrae.
Vertebrae. Yep. Those are one. What else?
The skull.
The skull. Ding, 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 ding. Connection to TMJ. Connection to TMJ in the house. Okay, what else?
The ribs and the nominants.
The
pelvis.
ribs. The ribs.
No, it's
Yes.
sacrum.
The sacrum,
Sacrum.
not the anominants. Those are appendicular,
Right,
but the
right.
sacrum. Yep, absolutely. So we know, anatomically speaking, that the axial skeleton is designed as a balance point to itself. We've talked about this in previous Tuesday trainings. Please find your way to those trainings if this supports you. There's 2 concave and 2 convex curves in the spine. They all balance each other. We know this. We've talked about spine alignment forever. You'll hear me talk about it again, probably till my last breath. And we also know that there's a cranial sacral connection. We know this by cranial sacral law. So now we know that whatever's happening in one area of this axial skeleton has a direct balance point somewhere else in the axial skeleton. Points don't live alone in the body. We're designed as a yoked system. We're all connected in all parts. So if I know the bones of the axial skeleton, and I know that one of them is the skull, and I know that TMJ, one of those is the skull, now I need to look somewhere else because I've already stretched the crap out of the TMJ as a joint, the temporal mandibular joint, and it didn't create a result. Neither did the dental work, neither did the night braces and the night guards, neither did the medication. Now we're dealing with headaches. Now we're in a neurologist's office because we have migraines all the time. Now we're not eating certain foods and our digestive's all screwed up. Now we have stress-induced sleep problems, all because this joint is not aligned. And I know, you got to look somewhere else. Follow the trail on that axial skeleton and find it. Find where those 2 points connect, balance them with your skill, and I promise you it will resolve it. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm just going to like let that sit for a second. Most people are like, what? TMJ in the sacrum? Are you kidding me? What? Watch this, guys. Watch this. Here's what we also know about functional anatomy. Whenever we're on the planet, whatever's happening in our body, our eyes will always find the horizon. Always find the horizon. Otherwise, we fall over, okay? How the eyes find the horizon depends on what's going on in that person's body. Some of us do it naturally by design with a balanced axial skeleton. Some of us do it by compensatory patterns because there's something awry in the axial skeleton, and then everything in between. So if I were to know that as a fact, and it is, that our eyes are always parallel to the horizon, and I know that everywhere there's a joint, there's movement available, and we've talked about the joint that's in question, that's got the disorder attached to it. The mandible is, the temporal mandibular joint is the most movable joint, I call it, at the end of the axial chain, starting at the sacrum, from the bottom all the way up. It's movable. It's very movable. I just showed you. I could almost take Murph's jaw off of his face, right? Yeah, you're doing it now, Gary, and you don't even have someone else's hand on you, right? You could legitimately, like I said, when I was doing myofascial release to folks, pull their jaw, and I was like, oh my God, I hope that doesn't disconnect, right? You can really get a lot of movement here. Not meant to happen. It's by design so that it can, again, so that this joint and hopefully the mandible will take the impact and not the skull, because again, we've got to protect the brain. Okay, all that to say, if one joint is movable, the one adjacent to it or related to it is also going to move. We know this. That's how the compensation pattern works in the body. That's how diagonals balance. So if, for example, I have no problem up here, my jaw is good, my muscles are fine, my ligaments are fly. Ooh, and then all of a sudden I have a chewing issue or a headache, or the dentist says, hey, did you notice? But I didn't have a concussion. I didn't get smacked in the jaw at a bar fight. I didn't fall down skiing, none of that. I need to look somewhere else. We've already established this. So you need to look somewhere else. Where though? Watch what happens. All I'm going to do now, with my eyes parallel to the horizon, level with the horizon, I'm just going to put my weight more on my right hip. I'm like sit down harder on my right hip. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to shift crazy. I'm not going to move my ribs. I'm not going to lean on anything and shift my body. All I'm going to do is put more weight on my right hip. Watch my eyes. Did you see? Here I am centered. Put my weight on my right hip. Did you see what happened?
Yeah, they stayed towards the horizon. They stayed like this.
Yes. And did anything else here? I'll move. Did anything else here move? I'll do it again.
Yeah, your head.
Heck yeah, it did. My head and my neck.
Sure.
Otherwise, if it didn't go that way, I would fall over that way, which my body's not going to do. It's going to make sure I'm like taken care of. Our body is our buddy, which is one of the reasons why it crushes me when our clients are like, oh, you know, my back did this and that damn ankle from football and no, we're not making enemies out of our bodies. Our bodies are so wise and protecting us from all of our shenanigans that we get to be like reverent and in gratitude. We just need to understand it. Okay, so if all I'm going to do in that example was just shift my weight and my head and my neck move that much, can you imagine what the shift would look like up here and the effect of all the joints if there was actually a discrepancy in alignment between my SI joint, for example, can you imagine how much different this would look? Yeah. So if this was wildly out of alignment, do you think it could do something to the movable areas up here? 100%. 100%. And a dentist is not going to work on the sacrum. Neither is a podiatrist. Neither is a physical therapist. They don't do alignment. Now, some of you might be saying, well, a chiropractor does. Sure, but a chiropractor works in forcibly moving joints that need to be freed to be able to move again. We do have movement here. I'm moving. Everybody's moving. I don't have anything locked. I don't need anything forcibly released. I just need it rebalanced. That's the difference. Okay, this is a great point. Before I forget again, Lori reminded me today, this is a great place to remind us that the Sacred Sacrum course is happening because of these questions. And this is a sacrum conversation. This is not a temporal mandibular joint conversation. Although there are so many diagnoses and disorders that we tend to spin around, and I have found most of them tie back, if most, greater than 90% tie back to the sacrum. That's why the SHOTS method is sacrum centric. That's why we focus there all the time. If you just focus on the sacrum first, all these other things, it's like a spoke on a wheel, they all sort themselves out, right? I don't have to worry about stretching someone's jaw way out of alignment. I'm just going to balance the sacrum, the jaw will sort itself out, like most of the time. I'm making it sound a little bit simple. You guys know there's more to it. Otherwise, you would be working for 5 minutes at a time with your clients. It takes a few minutes, but it's pretty straightforward if you know what to look for. So we're running the Sacred Sacrum course again, live, in person, for the first time in several years on your request. Thank you so much for letting me know this is what you wanted. We're starting October 2nd, giving us lots of leeway. Oh, hey, thanks, Lori. Giving us lots of leeway to set up our calendars. I know some of us are busy and we're going to do this during work hours because you don't want me trying to talk while I'm tired. It's not pretty. So we're going to be doing it during the day. Live. It's 8 weeks long. And for those of you who are like, but I wanted to start now, I got you covered. We have 8 weeks of bonuses every week from now until the time that we're launching live. There are bonuses that you can actually start your sacrum training early, depending on when you want to make the commitment. So if you commit early, you get rewarded for that. And every week there's a new bonus that rolls out. I know Gary's capped in on that. Lori's signed up for the workshop. There's a couple others that are already in too, so welcome. I'm so glad you guys are eager and hungry. And if you need time to set up your schedule, that's fine. One thing to know about this course, this is a feature again, not benefits, but in order to get the replays, there are replays. Folks have been asking, can I get the replay? Can I get the, absolutely, but you got to come live. You got to come live to this training in order to have access to the replays. If you sign up and you don't show up, you don't get the replays. That's sort of how that works. And the reason for that is sort of expanded. I'm going to give you the shortcut. It's because I need to be able to watch what you're doing so that I know that you've got it. There was someone who attended a sacral workshop years ago and hurt herself, a very well-vetted practitioner. I want to be able to synthesize the information with you, and I don't want you leaving with it and potentially creating some havoc, because this is a big deal, monkeying with the keystone of the entire structure of the body. And that's the benefit of the course. It's the entire keystone of the entire structure of the entire body. It is the kahuna. It's the golden chalice. It has most, if not all, of the answers. That's why it's sacred. We hold in reverence the sacrum in our mind's eye and in our hearts. And I want to share with you for 8 weeks how to navigate that so that you can create these results and be able to identify symptoms to source and then what to do about it. So it's definitely a workshopping training. So come and be prepared to move and try things out on your body. Again, that's how someone got herself into a little bit of a pickle. That's not going to happen this time. And we're going to talk about all the things that all tie back to the sacrum. I'm going to show you how many ways, literally, you're not going to say any other bone by the time we're done with that workshop, if I've done my job effectively, because I barely say any other bone. So that's coming. Please do get yourself signed up if you're interested in the bonuses. And I'm really looking forward to sharing a very concentrated, lovely time with all of you, deep in discussion. Coming back to today's topic, TMJ. It matters to me that I've made something clear and that you know what to do about it. And it also matters that I open up time here for Q&A. I recognize last week I talked almost the whole time and didn't offer Q&A. Just get on a roll, and I need you to have the information. So let's turn it over to you guys now. What questions do you have on anything that we've talked about today or TMJ? And if it's not about something we talked about today and you do have a burning question, please feel free to ask that. Like all cues are welcome here, and I'm happy to answer them. What questions do you guys have? Anything? Gary?
So this gets more into a marketing issue, because I would love to be able to come to dentists with intelligence and integrity and be able to convince them that this is really the way we need to go. How can we work together as a team to help your patients with this work?
Yes.
And that's where my challenge is right now, because I think everyone on this segment today could expand our businesses just working with dentists alone.
Absolutely.
If we can get them on board. So anyway.
Absolutely, Gary, I love this. That is the true essence of partnering. What I heard you say was, how can we work together to solve this problem? That's the essence of partnering. The essence of partnering isn't, and you didn't say, the essence of partnering isn't, you're doing it all wrong and you should have your patients come to me. That's not partnering, that's arrogance. So I love how you phrase this, Gary. And that is the key, right? Work together with other providers. We also don't do fillings or dentures or braces. So they're needed just as much as we are. And super compassionate, super loving and kind. They're not trained below the clavicle. Okay, so there's just some things they don't know. Doesn't make them less than, doesn't make them wrong, right? And if you can really have that essence, your come from being that loving and generous and understanding, and truly with the interest of partnering with them, you will absolutely have providers who are interested in partnering with you. Now, their vision and intention has to be the same as yours, for sure, right? You've heard me say that there's other types of modalities out there that are like, conveyor belts. Just get them in, get them out, get them in, keep them coming though, keep them coming, keep them coming. That probably wouldn't be the type of provider that would align with this conversation, because this is going to solve it. So as long as you find a provider in your region, in your area, that has a similar constitution of character and value and ultimate outcome, and they're not built on scarcity modeling, meaning I have to keep all my patients, and you have the compassion and the wisdom to explain to them what's up and how you can work together, not take from them. That's key, right? A doctor probably has more patients than you do. They don't want you to look at them like a meal ticket. Why would they? So don't, right? If you're looking at them like a meal ticket, like, oh, I can get all my clients from these guys and do better than the doctor's doing, you're going to hear a no every time. And you should, because that's the wrong come from, right? So as long as the come from is clean, you're right, Gary, it's absolutely possible. The only feedback I would give you is that if you think it's a challenge, it will be, because we're creating our own reality. If you think it's a challenge instead of an awesome opportunity, then it will always be a challenge that won't be resolved. But if you think it's an awesome opportunity loaded with potential for everyone involved, everyone will benefit. So that's also part of the come from. And I think the challenge that you may be feeling, tell me if I'm onto this or not, the challenge you may be feeling is just due to you still need or want or desire more results to prove to yourself that, like, you've got this enough to resolve it, have evidence, and then also be able to explain it to someone else and enroll them in it. If you have all four of those, then it won't feel like it's a challenge. It'd be like, ooh, I got this. Let's go. Am I close on any of that?
Mhm.
Yeah. So then great. So good. So just notice, just like when we're talking about what anatomy do you need to learn next, because we all have something to learn and grow with. If that's what your growth edge is on this particular mission of yours to to partner with dentists, then you just want to like focus on creating results. Focus on creating results on TMJ. Register them, count how many sessions it took you, take really good notes, remind yourself what you did that worked, emphasize what didn't so you can, create a clearer path the next time. Don't be stretching jaws like I did. Don't waste your time. Doesn't work, right? Like maybe at the end, after you've balanced all the axial skeleton, that might be a helpful trick or technique, but it's not the starting and ending point. And that's why you guys have heard me talk about techniques are not the answer. Don't throw a technique at a body and expect that to be a treatment plan. It's not. We're more systemic than that. So was that a technique that's useful? Yeah, but maybe at the end of balancing the axial skeleton instead of at the start of someone's TMJ complaint, right? Now that I know that, I'm more confident with this. So I can tell you with confidence, and you'll have that same experience. The more you create results, your confidence will rise, and then you'll be able to hone your messaging and go partner with someone that you can make it a win-win. So then it won't be too much.
Do you know of any research in any journals that have been done that we can point to or say, here's research from Journal of Dentistry, about this, about the sacrum and TMJ?
Yeah, I know that you love research, Gary, and there's definitely a place for it. And here's what I'm going to say. Instead of heading you towards an article, this is what I want to offer you about research. This is for everybody. Research can be skewed in any direction you want it to be in. Some of it's very valuable and some of it's not valuable because it can be skewed. The best research that you as a service provider is going to have walking into a medical provider's office with the intent to partner with them is your own research results. Your clinical results are going to speak for themselves more than any third-party document that might be dismissed for being skewed research.
Okay.
Yeah. So absolutely go find some research if you want it, but you still get to create the results. Otherwise, there's nothing to partner with. Even if an article says absolutely bodywork is the answer, you need Gary, you need Gary's modality to do the job. If Gary's not skilled at the job yet, the modality is not going to do it for you. Your results are what's going to be the research that's needed to enroll a partner in working with you. So I highly recommend we all do that. Implement. Lisa and Cheryl and Lori, I know you guys have heard me say that word. You're like, stop saying that word. I can't emphasize it enough. Implement your face off. Your skill is not going to build by reading a book. Your knowledge will, but your skill will not, my babes. I wish. Are you kidding me? I had a wall of books at one point in time. I still had to get in there and do the wrong technique to figure it out. You got to be in the game to play the game. You can't be in the bleachers watching. It's not your game that you've won if your team runs the end zone and you're in the bleachers. You got to be on the field playing. Implement your face off. And then count all your wins and be like, oh, dang, this is amazing. There is no research article written yet. I'm going to write this bad boy because I know this is what works, right? That's how you approach it. Okay, promise me that you'll do that. Awesome question, Gary. Any other questions? To Lisa, hello, hi.
It's really more of a, if you could go back to talking about some of the laws in the axial. I didn't catch the 2 points. I mean, that's all I heard was if you've got this going on here, there's a second point, which is not exactly what I heard, but could you maybe touch that again?
Yep, absolutely. I'm talking about the 4 curves of the spine, which you're familiar with. There's also recorded material that you have access to in Inspired Beyond Anatomy Level 1 that goes over this. So you might want to go back and review there as well. This is
Okay.
foundational. So to get to the end point of the SHOTS method, you got to know this. I definitely appreciate you questioning it. And I want you to know where your resources are to go back to and reference again, because you want to have this.
Okay.
Okay. So in the 4 curves of the body, there's 4 balance curves, 4 curves of the spine. Sorry, 4 curves of the spine. There's equal balance. You're welcome, Andrew. It's great to have you. There's 4 curves of the spine, 2 concave and 2 convex. Which 2 curves of the spine go in the same direction? I'm asking you, Lisa.
Well, concave is the low back and the neck,
Yep.
and convex is the thoracic and our sacrum.
There you go. Those are the 4 curves of the spine, and you could see they're
Right.
alternating segments. This one goes this direction, that one goes that direction, then this direction, then that direction, and they balance each other. The 2 that go in the
Right.
same direction are talking to each other. The 2 that go in the other direction are talking to each other. Great. Okay. Then there's another law that supports our axial skeleton, which is the cranial sacral law.
Right.
And that is that whatever's happening in the cranium is happening in the sacrum. So if you've followed any Upledger's work or
Okay.
cranial sacral technique or cranial sacral therapy or cranial sacral law, that's all in that body of information. And you don't have to study any of that to know it. You should know to know more about it, just know it. Whatever is going on in the cranium is affecting the sacrum. And we've talked about that in mastery, about forward head and what that does to the sacrum and what the sacrum does to the head and vice versa. We've patterned that back and forth several times. So if you walk through a treatment or walk into a treatment with these knowings, the laws, 4 curves balance each other, and craniosacral law is a real thing. If you go in with those laws, then you can assess what you're seeing and apply the law. Is this effect based on that law? Is that law saying that's why this is happening in the body? So if I have something going on in the temporal mandibular joint, like we just talked about, that's the cranium. I know there's a law that says I should at least consider the sacrum. Okay. And if it's not the sacrum, but I'm seeing something else in the axial skeleton, I can't remember if it was you, Lisa, or Gary that said, oh, the spine might be off. If the spine is off, but it's not the sacrum that's off, it's the lumbar spine that's off. Well, now the lumbar spine being off tells me I should go look at the cervical spine because those 2 curves balance each other. Right? Which is why we don't stop here where the symptoms are. We also know another law of the body. Ooh, I need to be writing these laws down. Another law of the body is that 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else. If I have a headache, it's probably not in my head. If I have TMJ pain, it's probably not from the temporal mandibular joint. Only 10% of the time would it be, which isn't never. So there is some validity to some instances where it actually is a joint problem. Sure, of course. And that's probably a dental issue more than a us issue. 10% of the time though, guys, 90% of the time we're leaving it unresolved and it's totally in our wheelhouse. So we go into a treatment with these knowings, with these laws that say, I know this to be a law. How does it apply here? Does it apply here? And have I uncovered that? Okay, did that answer your question, Lisa, about the 4 curves?
I think it did. I think I had caught all of it, but then I heard you say 2 points, and I didn't recognize that those 2 points referred back to the balancing of the curves. I just was wondering, where does 2 points come in?
Yeah,
but
when
I think
did I say
it's
2
each
points?
curve. Well, it was in that first time through today that I heard 2 points, and so I just
It's
didn't
the
know where
YouTube
that fit.
replay.
Well,
Yeah.
Laura?
Just the YouTube replay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can listen back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I say these 2 points of the spine or these 2 segments of the spine or these 2 curves of the spine, you want to be fluid enough to be able to,
So what I heard now is more clarification on if it's something in the low curve, or the lumbar curve, look at the neck. As there's 2 points right there, correct?
Yeah, there you go. 2 points.
Okay.
You said it too.
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions for today? Axial skeleton, temporomandibular joint, sacrum, sacred sacrum course questions. I hope you guys all join us there. It's going to be a really fun fall. Ooh, baby, we're going to be right into the holiday season with all kinds of hot new skill and technique. Okay, my friends. Well, I enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much for contributing such rich questions and commentary and ideas. And thank you for being vulnerable and willing to, answer questions and come up with commentary so that I can pour into you. I just was reading something today from someone inside our mastery community, our Shots Method community in our mastery program, who said, it can be really uncomfortable to be hot seated. And I had that moment of like, ooh, I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. And I really want you to learn. One of the ways that it helps me to pour into you effectively is to hear what you already have for thoughts, not to make it hot for you, but to hear what you're already thinking about on this topic so that I can fill in the gaps for you and just know like, hey, I've been there, don't do that. Or I haven't even thought of that before, but this is what I would do with it. So thank you for contributing in that way and being brave, because it really helps me target and get focused on the shares. Mary, did you come back on camera because you have a question?
No, just to, going through school and the many times that I was hot seated and it was definitely not comfortable, but it's the only way to, I think, spinning it to actually realize that you know more stuff than you actually think you do. And it's just maybe a change in the language or change in or looking from a different perspective where you're just like, oh, why didn't I think of it? And then all these random concepts just kind of congeal together and you're just like, duh, of course I know what I'm talking about. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Of course you know what you're talking about. And if I'm in service to you and providing value, I would take you one step further than that. Otherwise, if you were all like, I knew everything she said, none of it was new, I'd be wasting your time. So it's going to feel a little bit like, ooh, okay, if you're open to that, and you all are. So again, thank you for your contribution and this juicy conversation. I love seeing you guys every week. I really look forward to our conversation next week. We will be here next Tuesday, same time, same channel. And until then, thank you so much for the incredible work you're doing in the world.